Hey everyone, thanks for joining me. Today I want to share with you a little project that I've been working on. I did this a few nights ago and I got very excited about it, and I showed it on Facebook and it had an overwhelming response to it. So I just wanted to share with you. Now, I'm not the first person to stamp on fabric, and I've watched videos. There was one in particular I watched, and I have spent over 2 hours today trying to find that video, and I cannot find it. It's driving me absolutely nuts. If I can find it in the future, I will link it below, but I can't find it. I swear it was Stitches by Julia, but I'm not able to find it. So go figure. Now, that all being said, I had about 4.5, 5 hours of sleep last night, so I'm not surprised. I've also made this video about 6 times today and have messed it up every time. So I'm hoping this is the one. This is unbleached muslin. I have taken strips of fabric. I washed my fabric when I bought it. I dried it. I did not use fabric softener. I ironed it. Then I squared it up. And if you don't know how to square up fabric, you can research that on YouTube. There's dozens and dozens, probably hundreds of videos on that. Usually it's a quilter or a seamstress doing it, a sewer. It's easy to do. You take your fabric. If you don't know anything about fabric, your selvage end is the 2 squared up ends. It's not the end they cut off when you go get it measured, like get a yard of fabric and they spread it out on the table and they cut off a yard. It's the smooth, tightly woven end that doesn't get cut. And what you do is you take your scissors and you just snip into the selvage just past where that fabric weave is really tight. And then you just tail it. And if you get a really wonky, uneven piece, I've done this piece a few times, so that piece came out even. But if you get a really wonky piece that is wide at one end and not the same width at the other, but very wonky, that means that was the uneven piece of your fabric. When you start getting even pieces where they're the same at both ends, which this isn't exactly, but it's pretty darn close, that means your fabric is squared up. And then you can start measuring off like 1.25 inches. If you want your fabric 1 inch wide, you measure off 1.25 inches. Always give yourself extra, because you're going to have the frayed edges and threads just keep fraying off. So your fabric is going to shrink as you go. So that's how you square up fabric. Then you just do lots of measuring, or you just tear at random, because who wants to measure, right? But this is various widths of fabric depending on what I wanted to stamp it with, because it has to be wide enough for your stamps. If you wanted to use, a really tall stamp like this, you'd have to have fabric it would fit on. So that's the only reason you would have to measure. Most of these stamps are from Stampin' Up! From 2006 and 2007, which I've had for years and years and years. When I used to make cards, I didn't sell cards, but I used to make them because it was something to do. And now I have found junk journaling, and I am obsessed and in love with it. And so, yeah, that's where I'm at. And these are some of the ribbons close up. Now, when I started, I think this was the first one I did. You can see it didn't come out very dark. So you have to make sure that you stamp your, ink your pad, or ink your stamp. I told you, not much sleep last night. Very well. Okay. I will do an example And I have done many examples this morning because, as I said, I've messed up many videos this morning. This is going to be the longest video process on earth, and it's going nowhere fast. So take a stamp. Now I use StazOn or archival ink. Those are the two that I will use on fabric. And stamp it up. I guess that's where Stampin' Up came from. And then just, oops, not that it matters. And I don't rock it. I press firmly. I leave it there for at least the count of 10, slow count of 10. You want your fabric to soak in the ink because you want it to be clear and you want it to stay there, right? And lift it off. And I really love the archival colors that I've gotten. I got a new set with some really pretty colors in it. So there you go. And then you can use pinking shears. You can snip this and tear it. You can cut it with scissors. I have many plans for these. One is to open an Etsy shop and sell them because I'm absolutely obsessed with doing them. Here are a couple of examples of what you can do with them. I made this tassel this morning. This is only like my third tassel. So I made this tassel this morning. I have embroidery floss left over from when I used to embroider. I have ribbons left over from making dream catchers. I have beads left over from making dream catchers and jewelry. And this was one of those pieces that I tore off of the white muslin when I was squaring it up. So you can see it's really wonky on one end and it's wider on the other. And these are just stamps that I put on it. I left it frayed, I left it with strings hanging off it, I left it uneven because that's just how I like to do things. And that's the other end. So I made this tassel, and I have watched several videos on making tassels. Linda Israel, Gail Augustinelli, and Mrs. Cog are three of them. And one of the people that I watch is Stitches by Julia, and she has given a lot of hints and tips and journal stuff and fabric stuff and jelly plate stuff and lots of things that I am interested in doing or have done and have seen or tried before or want to try. And I've just had so much fun the last few weeks since I started getting into this stuff. So there's one example of how you can use it. This is something I just made. I just made that. And I am going to attach it to this tassel, which was my first tassel I ever made a few days ago for a journal that I have not made a cover for yet. I used a ball pin. I used my crocodile to make the hole. I put the little grommet, and for my life I can't remember what the other name of this is. Eyelet, maybe? Yeah, I think it's an eyelet. But when you have 4 hours of sleep, you can't hardly remember your name. And I'm just going to put that on there. Oh, I did this before. I tend to put it on backwards. Let's see if that's right. There. So that's going to hang off the journal with the tassel. Or it could be hung inside. If you have lace on your journal or lace on your journal pages, you could hang it off of that. You could attach it to a fabric journal cover. You could use a safety pin if you wanted to. This is a bulb pin that I got on Amazon. You could not put an eyelet in it, and you could sew this on. You could glue this on. Now what I did with this was I used Wonder Under, and I put 2 layers of muslin together with Wonder Under in between. And the directions are on the back of the box. It's a double-sided iron-on, so you iron on one side. I stripped my fabric. I cut the Wonder Under about 1/8 of an inch less wide as the strips, and I iron it facing down. So I put parchment paper, then I put a piece of fabric down, then I put the strip of Wonder Under facing down, the bumpy side that you're supposed to iron down, the paper side up. I iron it, then I let it cool, then I strip the paper off, and I take the next sheet of muslin that I want to iron it to. I put it down. This is the side with the Wonder Under on it, sewn on it. I put that down so everything's facing down on the parchment paper, and then iron over it. This way you don't get the Wonder Under on your iron, because you don't want to do that. So I hope that's clearer than mud, because like I said, this is like my 5th video today because the others all failed, and I keep repeating myself and I can't remember what I've said in each video now. Ha! So that's Wonder Under. They make other brands of this. It makes it just stiff enough. You don't want anything too light, because then it really doesn't do any good to have it. It doesn't make it stiff enough for me then. But many, many uses. Now the other thing I did was freezer paper. I took freezer paper. Freezer paper has a shiny side and a dull side, a papery side. This is the dull papery side. And I took, I don't know, 1/2 yard of muslin. This is the white muslin. And I ironed it onto the freezer paper. And I made sure that it was ironed down really, really well. Then I cut it in 8.5 by 11 sheets. And I believe that the huge box of freezer paper I have, I did 8.5, 8.5, and then I had a little strip left over. And actually this is the strip I had left over. So, I don't know, 4 inches. And then I measured 11 the other direction and just cut them all in 11 by 8.5. I have a very cheap Epson printer. Very cheap, not a very good one. And as you can see, it left some smudges at the top. But other than that, it came out pretty good. And I just looked up some quotes and used some words that I don't have any stamps saying any of these things. And I still wanted to use these words. So what I'm going to do is use pinking shears to cut around these. And they can be glued on or stitched on tags and pockets and papers and cardstock. And you can use Fabri-Tac to glue them on. Yeah, you can do just about anything with these things. It's fabric. So I'm going to cut them and then peel them off the paper. Take the paper off the back before you do anything else with them. But cut it with the paper on, because the paper gives it some body. Otherwise, it'll be harder to cut. You could also cut it with a rotary cutter. The pinking shears will keep them from getting a fringe on them, from coming undone, the threads coming off. There's a word for it. I can't think of it. 4 hours sleep, you know. I also did this, and I thought that came out really pretty. This is just on the unbleached muslin. Tell me, what is it you plan to do with your one wild and precious life? And I really love that saying. I got that from a stamp set I bought yesterday at Hobby Lobby, MSC stamps. And the stamp set is here. Hold on. Isn't that elephant really cool? Can you see it? Very cool, huh? So I thought that was really cool, and I like all the sayings on it. I like positive affirmations. So I got that at Hobby Lobby. The stamps were on sale. This one was not, because Paper Studio was on sale. So I used my 40% off coupon, and that worked. So I hope that this gives you a lot of inspiration and that you want to try it. It's a lot of fun. It's very addictive. Even if you don't do the printer one and you don't do the one with the freezer paper on the back, see the shiny part of the freezer paper? That's the part you iron on. Even if you don't do this, because it's kind of fussy, takes time, if you just grab some muslin, wash it, dry it, no fabric softener, and use your archival or StazOn ink and your stamps, rubber stamps, clear stamps, stamping platform if you want. You could whiz through them with a stamping platform. Cut them out, sew them, glue them. Be creative. If you've ever done this, or you do it sometime in the future, send me a link. Put it in the comments below, and I will check it out. Go have some fun. Be creative. Thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. Have a great day. Happy crafting. Subscribe. Hit the like button. Give me a thumbs up, please. Share if you want, if you liked it and you know somebody who might be interested in this. And take care. Thank you.